Hello and welcome to Fintech Impact. I'm your host, Jason Pereira. Today on the show, I had the privilege of interviewing Ron Carson of Carson Wealth. For those of you unfamiliar with Ron is a very successful and very well-known advisor, entrepreneur, and thought leader in the space of financial planning in the U.S. One note, I do apologize. The connection for this interview is not fantastic, so there will be times where the connection cuts out and you will miss a couple words, but I am confident that you'll be able to follow along. Hello, Ron.
How you doing, Jason?
Thank you for taking the time to come on today.
I appreciate the invite.
Well, it's not every day you interview basically a wealth management legend in the U.S., so thank you.
Thanks.
Well, it's true. So Ron Carson of Carson Wealth, tell us about Carson Wealth.
Let me give you just a little history here, Jason. I think it helps the listeners understand where we're at today. Briefly, I grew up just north of Omaha, Nebraska on a farm. This is a real Reader's Digest version. Thought I was going to become a farmer. Parents went broke in 1982. Interest rates, by the way, were 21.5%. What a contrast to where they are today.
That's quite the bond.
Sitting in my study hall in the library, looking at Money Magazine, top professions of the future. One was become a certified financial planner. Decided that's what I would do. So in 83, I started out of my college dorm room, what today is known as Carson Wealth, which is a retail offering where we're B2C to the consumer. Then in 93, 10 years later, because of the success I had in Nebraska, I think people, by the way, they're like, how on earth do you grow in Omaha, Nebraska? I think they thought we didn't have running water, paved roads, electricity, all that. So they come to Omaha and they would spend some time with me and I'd show them everything I was doing. I was glad to do it. I don't know what they envisioned, but I was the largest producer at the time for the largest independent broker-dealer in the U.S. And I had done that for 20 some years in a row. And I had developed some different ways, passion prospecting was something I developed, love affair marketing, something I developed, how to delegate, how to systematize. So I really decided I can teach this. And so I started a coaching consulting group in 93. Today, we have just north of 5,000 advisors that are in Carson Coaching and Consulting. And we have 20,000 active alumni. When I say active, Jason, they'll come in for a period of time and they'll leave. But what I realized as I went through my career is I would show other advisors exactly how to do it, but the execution was not what they wanted. And I just, it's hard, right? We're asked to wear so many hats, do so many things. A lot of advisors didn't get into the space to become a business owner, but then they became a business owner, They went from passion of love, helping people, to all of a sudden, I got all this stuff. And hey, I agree with what Carson says, but I have great intentions when they tell me what to do, but I rarely get around to getting it done. And so 2012, I launched Carson Group Partners, which we invested in. I really wanted a technology to make everything simple. We call it a single pane of glass, where it's a great user experience, great client experience, both for the advisor and the client. We say we make the complex simple. And we've really become as much a fintech offering today. We won this year Best Places to Work in Fintech and separately in wealth management.
Wow.
And it is just, we got lightning in a bottle. We will pierce the $10 billion AUM mark here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're really close to it now. Although the market's down this last week, it could take a little bit away. And we got another $3 billion of committed assets. So if we don't do another thing, we'll end the year about 12.8, 12.9 billion. And to think we've like 15 folded the business since 12 because there's such a demand for, I call it showing value beyond a doubt. We're in a period when I first started in 83. If people liked you sit down, had a cup of coffee and they connected, they would give you money, and there was really no way for them to know how they were doing. The advisor didn't really even know in those days. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have all the information. And now consumers are like, I'll make an investment in my future, known as an advisory fee, but I want to see I'm getting value beyond a doubt. And so that's what this whole ecosystem, single pane of glass experience, and what allowed us to grow so rapidly is a validation that advisors want to get back to just doing what they do, meet with clients and have everything else taken care of. And then on the consumer side, consumers are like, hey, I'm willing to invest in my future, but I want to see I'm getting a return. We actually acquired a firm in Chicago that we closed on in January, about $200 million firm, Jason. And we had to double the client's fee, or I call it investment in their future, because that's really what it would be. And we attracted a lot more assets. They're like, we are glad to pay when we see what we're actually getting. I think that's where a lot of advisors are on this incredible race to zero. And if you're going to try to do that, you can't cut your fees low enough. Vanguard's already got that game.
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing freer than someone who's technically doing it for free. All right, excellent. So you are the head of a very large enterprise that you built yourself. You guys are servicing a ton of assets, and you're using technology to basically grease the wheels and create a better client experience and demonstrate value. Take me through first of all, what it is you've built to do that, and then how I want to discover how it is you're demonstrating that value kind of in real time or as the relationship happens.
Yeah. So what happens is when an advisor actually joins Carson, first of all, there's several different layers, Jason, levers they can pull. One is, let's isolate these, because one is succession. A lot of advisors don't have a viable succession solution out there. So at Carson, when you join us, we can be your succession solution, we can be your backstop, and we will even invest in your firm if you want. It's an option, it's not required. And of all the 124 offices we have today, we own anywhere from 0 to 100% and almost everything in between. So that's a separate offering. Once you are in the ecosystem, we do it all for you. We do your marketing. Last year we acquired Mineral. We're already pretty good at marketing. Mineral's taken us to a whole new level. We do the compliance, we do the trading, we do the asset management, and then we've built a tech stack that is all integrated, single data entry, multi-data use. So once you put a piece of data in the ecosystem, you never have to think about it again. Let's get back to demonstrating value beyond a doubt. Mm-hmm. We all know that planning generates an incredible amount of value for the consumer, yet very few advisors really charge appropriately for planning, us included, if you're charging an asset management fee. And the reason why we haven't jumped on the bandwagon was because it's not a bandwagon yet. We decided we'd rather be fast followers and bleeding edge, because I was a fast follower on transparency and my competitors used it against me. I mean, I would sit there, by the way, and show all the costs, and they would only show their advisory fee, and they're comparing it to all the costs, including every single thing included below the line, things you normally wouldn't see.
I know that pain. I do the same thing, and we're a little bit behind in Canada. So.
And now today, we're winning a lot of business because of it. But for me I've talked to some of the advisors we've coached. They've gone to a purely retainer fee planning model, and they said it's like pulling teeth with clients. They said some of the new clients coming in, we offer it and they like it, but I had a lady transition everybody. She goes, my clients really preferred the old way of doing it. So it's like, why do I want to go through the brain damage? But let's come back to planning again, where we generate value. We now, within our single pane of glass, when a client logs on, they can see every decision that was made with the advisor. There's a timeline, and you can go back and populate things that happened in the past. But if you move forward, you're actually in a meeting, you're creating a living document that is archiving every great decision you've helped the client make. And anytime they log in, they can blow up this timeline if they ever want to remind themselves how much value you're creating. And when we do our reviews now, we've reviewed the timeline, just a review of all the great things we've accomplished over the lifetime of the relationship. Because, most advisors will tell me, Ron, I didn't realize all the great things I'd done for a client until I saw it. I was like, wow. A lot of my clients are like, boy, I didn't realize we'd made so many decisions together. And so now we've been able to measure. The reason most advisors have hung their hat on performance, which is a losing game, is that's the only thing that was measurable. Well, now we've measured the planning alpha, which is huge, right? I mean, you can see it. The other alpha that we can also show is client behavior alpha. We all know clients do the wrong thing at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. And so through our digital allocation tool, which is all integrated, by the way, into the same system, we can measure a client's appropriate risk tolerance level and influence their behavior in a popular way. We know when a client goes in, what do they look at, what's the market, what's going on in the market. So we're getting to where we can go from behavior of the masses and what the averages do to be able to drill down to individual client behavior and anticipate when they're about ready to do something that probably isn't going to work out, i.e. panic at the bottom of a market correction. And that's why we have this family index number. So think about alpha through planning, alpha through behavior, influencing that. And then things that we just announced a couple of weeks ago, a partnership with Galileo, where we're going to be able to offer cash. The technology that Galileo, by the way, Clay Wilkes, who founded Galileo, is the father of voice over internet protocol. Brilliant man. They did 100 billion transactions last year. We're the first RIA they're partnering with.
God.
I know. Think of that. Here, a bank today, I'll be doing a client event tonight with my newest partner in Colorado, in the Denver area, Loveland, Colorado. And we'll be able to talk to clients about, hey, who loves your bank? Everybody loves their bank. And then I said, how would you feel if the bank was taking 90% of your return on cash? And they go, what do you mean? It's like you're getting like 15 basis points today. At a minimum, the bank's making Fed funds that call it 200 basis points. They're taking basically 2%. Can you imagine if they credited that and took all that back at the end of the year? And like, yeah, I wouldn't like that. Well, guess what? We're going to flip the economics. We're going to be able to give you FDIC insurance, $2.5 million, not 250, $2.5 million. And we're going to give you the 2%, and we'll retain the 15 basis points. So we're just going to flip the economics that the bank has to your benefit. How powerful do you think that is, Jason? When someone that they deal with every day, checking and savings, can see that's measurable, right? That's something I can do. Into 2020, we'll be offering legal document production through an outside law firm that will all funnel into the single pane of glass. An advisor will be able to choose whether they want to charge nothing or a nominal amount or whatever the market is for core documents under the financial planning portion of the services agreement. So these are among many. We'll be adding financial cognitive decision making, so we can measure. The clients that want it can measure. How are they doing? Should they bring a third party in? It's just an exciting time to be able to, and then AI. As we build data within the data warehouses, be able to get deeper and deeper knowledge of our clients' behavior. Imagine a world, Jason, where we can look at their entire plan real time, all the time, compare it to what they're doing, what's happening in their plan, and what's happening in the outside world with tax law changes, estate law changes, whatever that might be, to where we can generate maybe 0, maybe 3 or 4 alpha generating ideas. But there's a process, and we're not doing this yet, but we're actually talking to a couple of different AI firms that I think this will be something we'll be able to add value in early 2021. And we operate at Carson in the next now, the next, and the next. So the next now, and we have 3 buckets of investment is keeping the system going today, and what are features that we've committed to our partners that we're going to add. The next is stuff that we'll add next year in 2020. And then 2021, we also have a bucket that we're investing in things that are going to have a very, very long payoff, but they're really important to make those investments today. When people come and they go, Ron, I love what you have. These features were baked 2 years ago. And so often people are trying to catch up, let's just say with us. I hear all the time, I'm going to go build it on my own. And I'm like,
good luck.
Because I didn't realize how lucky I'd become. Not only the money we spent, but being in Omaha, Nebraska, with the talent pool, the cost of living is a fraction of where it is everywhere else. And it's a hard business to be in. I have a new appreciation for just how difficult it is to get technology all to talk in an integrated way, but it's worth it. I mean, the productivity we're driving on the advisor side and the client experience is validation that all the pain and the money and the time was well worth it.
That is astonishing, all the things you're handling. It's quite, I am quite jealous, agreeing with envy, as you're probably seeing in the video. I want to unpack some of those functions, and there's a lot to go through. So this entire advisor, this client timeline, is this keeping track of things that are not just done in conjunction with the client, but the things we do in the background as well? The research we do, the stuff that we're prepping for client meetings that they may never know we've investigated on their behalf unless we tell them. Are you looking at both sides of that?
Yeah, it's up to the advisor on what they want to include, because you're right. I mean, some of the things we do are very measurable. Hey, we set up a captive insurance company. We saved you $700,000 in taxes in 2011. That's very, very measurable. But there's other things like you hated your job. You're traveling to England, London every 2 weeks. And we spent an entire Saturday deciding it was okay for you to quit your job, walk away from $10 million on unvested stock options and restricted units. And now, your marriage is good again. You've reconnected with your kids. But I think I've done those meetings, and that's important to memorialize that, because that is, you can't measure the alpha directly as in dollars and cents, but there's a huge emotional alpha that's been created there. So the advisor has the choice of what they want to include. For example, my partner in Amarillo, Michael David, he's Carson Wealth of the Southwest. His biggest client, the most critical of the fees that they paid, once he just did a review of them a couple months ago and went through, and the client's like, oh my gosh. He says, I hate to say this, but I think I've been underpaying you. And Michael's like, exactly. No, he was dead serious. I mean,
oh no, I've had that compliment a couple of times myself, and I just smile every time. Thank you.
He even included, because he showed me the review. Michael said, yeah, and he had this concentrated stock position that was like a third of his net worth, and he absolutely didn't want to sell it. I talked him into buying some puts, and we did some things, and that stock cratered. And generated like $14 million in additional gain that the client wouldn't have had without that. Client goes, did you recommend that to me? And he goes, absolutely. And here's the documentation. And the client goes, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I had forgotten all about that. That was your idea. I always say the best ideas, Jason, after a period of time, become the client's ideas if we're not careful.
That is very true. If we don't make sure we stuck our foot in the ground and said, no, this is definitely us, they forget sometimes. And what do you mean?
And you know what? We're dealing with this every day. So if we're forgetting some of the items that we're doing for the client, the client's forgetting them. It's like that great bottle of wine somebody sends to me at Christmas. By the time I pull out of my cellar 3 years ago, it's like, I have no idea who gave it to me.
So, absolutely. So it sounds like you're able to basically have discretion over, are we attaching a dollar amount to this activity or not? Is that the case?
Only if it's measurable beyond. Okay. I mean, if it's straightforward dollars and cents. Like, for example, the equity, buying the puts, we knew exactly where the company is today versus where we exited the position. Things like counseling the client on quitting their job so they could have a real life. There's no dollar amount that can be attached.
Yeah, and that's a real challenge. When I talk to other companies about designing systems that would basically measure the advisor alpha or gamma, whatever else you want to call it. It's so bespoke to the client situation, right? And you just outlined enormous ones. That one is fully quantitative, quantitative, and the other one is absolutely not, but hugely valuable. So, bravo, well done.
Paint a picture too, Jason. I just spent last night. I'm in Venice, California right now, and there's a guy that I connected with out here yesterday for 3 hours, and he, like me, he really is excited about what AI is going to be able to do for the future. So just imagine we know every time a client logs in what they do, what they're looking at, so on and so forth. So now I can say, Mrs. Jones, the market was down 2.12% today. And I noticed that whenever the market goes down by more than 2%, you spend about an hour looking at your stuff. I just wanted you to know, when you were in October of 2018, because the system will know, right, when she was in, we actually have changed your objective from growth to growth and income. And you'll be pleased to know that your account wasn't down 2.12. It was only down 0.3%. Your strategy is performing as advertised. I know you're scheduled to come in on June 10th at 2 p.m. because the system would know that. We can discuss it then, or if you'd like to give me a call, we can discuss what's going on the market today. Imagine, or it could be, client came in and became aggressive back in October. Hey, if this level of volatility isn't for you, let me know. But we will be able to generate customized communication based on that individual client's behavior that will be more personalized than if I wrote that individual letter myself.
I agree. I've already seen some AI-driven document generation. I was quite surprised by it because I'm pretty sure I'd actually seen those reports handed to me previously. So yeah, I mean, I was going to go next to the behavioral side of it, but you kind of tackled it there. I mean, it seems like you've already crossed the chasm on data collection. You see yourself, you understand the stewardship of data and being able to integrate it across different verticals, and are actually now looking towards actionable items and how we can impact people's behavior with that for the better. Fantastic. So the legal document side, this is another interesting value add. So basically, I think we're talking wills, powers of attorney, any kind of like LegalZoom type standard stuff is what we're looking at.
Yeah, one of my board members, good friend of mine, is actually developing technology right now that will allow this to happen. And so as I say that, I don't even know. Yeah, I probably better not say any more than what I've said, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
Maybe have him on. This will be rolled out here at the end of this year, beginning of next year. And
that would be great. I'm happy to. And now, without giving away too much, maybe you can answer this question now, maybe you can. Are we talking about potentially, I'm taking with all this data and the way you guys are thinking, you're probably trying to find the fastest way to get from start to finish, utilizing everything on your current system. So being able to draw in account numbers and policy number information and whatever it is to flow over to that will and be ready for basically the base case to be populated very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, let me give you another example. So I think of 3 dimensions of trust. The first dimension that clients want to know is, hey, is my money safe? Are you going to steal it? And that's pretty easy hurdle to overcome. The second dimension is, are you going to put my interest first every time? That is 65% of Americans still do not trust financial services. So most advisors aren't clearing that hurdle. The Holy Grail is what we're talking about here in anticipating the client's needs. Is the third dimension of trust. Talked about AI looking at everything all the time, generating alpha. How about Mr. Jones? I know you've got Susie going off to Notre Dame in August. I've enclosed a durable medical power of attorney. Please have her authorize this as you'll need it. Automatic, we know the kids, we know their ages, who's getting out ahead to even think, and how good's a client feel that we were on top of it to proactively get this done for them.
That is incredible. That is incredible. I mean, like, and it's funny because I'm sure you found to your history as well, is that people seem to worry about their wills and their insurance a lot more when they're about to get on a plane, despite being the safest way to travel. And when you think about them,
I know. I tell people all the time because they fly with me. My team, is like the first time they get on the plane. I go, okay, guys, as we're getting ready to land, I'll say this is the most dangerous part of the trip. And they go, landing? I'll go, no, when you get in your car.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I'm sure you've seen, on the insurance side, you fill out an application and you see someone's got like a lot of moving traffic violations, yet they're afraid of flying. And it's like, no, there's a disconnect. But yeah, I mean, like when I think about all the stuff you can do, given what you're building right now, with everything you just described in terms of, hey, you're going on vacation, here's your power of attorney, all this other stuff, that can also all be automated through the AI because we can just, the triggers and the documents on, and just simply saying, here's a link to the secure vault that you have where your power of attorney can access it should the information be needed. It's next level thinking. Fantastic. And now onto the banking side, back to what you're doing with Galileo, which is particularly interesting. So are you actually looking to just hold on to deposit cash, or are you actually looking to basically create your own neobank where essentially you would actually have the transactions flowing through that as well?
No, it's actually going to be, so what's cool about the way this works, a client will have a seamless experience with us, yet we're not going to be regulated as a bank. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be all on the Galileo side, and it'll be through National Bank as well, handling that. So we're just here, we just want the benefit for the consumer, and we're going to allow Galileo to run everything else. But it's like Amazon Prime. You go, you hit, you click, it shows up at your door. You have no idea, nor do you care, all the things that had to happen in the background and the way that Amazon delivers that experience 5 years ago versus today. There's a lot of different ways and different technologies they use, and the consumer doesn't know, and they don't want to know. They just want to know they're getting the best, fastest, cheapest, highest value experience that they can. And that's whether these partners, things that we create on our own or things that we partner that we white label, like this will be called Carson Cash. So the consumer won't even know it's being powered by Galileo, who actually also powers Robinhood. I don't know if you're familiar with Robinhood.
With them. Yep.
Yep.
So, and that opens up all kinds of interesting doors, because now if you're the place where the cash goes, all the number of behavioral cues and things you can do, like roundups and basically even like say more tomorrow, as money gets deposited, you can create thresholds whereby if it goes beyond a certain level, hey, should be transferred over to here's the nudge to transfer this over to your investment accounts. It's interesting. The power to integrate those cash balances with what everything else you're doing is incredibly powerful on the behavioral side.
And, and imagine the consumer or even a prospect. It's like, well, how do you add value to me? It's like everybody gets cash, right? So here, let me give you just one simple example. And what will happen is a consumer will interpolate that then into other things that you do, right? So if you can give them something up front that's easy and they understand, you're getting a huge amount of credit, which we should, because we don't get nearly enough credit for all the other things you were pointing out earlier, Jason, that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we're doing and adding value to the people we serve.
Well, you have most certainly thought about this from every dimension I can imagine, and I give you kudos for that. And I got to tell you, I get incredibly jealous when I have some of these conversations because I do not live in this ecosystem, and a little thing called the border prevents me from doing that.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? So,
you know what, Jason, it'll be there before you know it. I think different for the country. I'm lucky because I live in the center of the universe. So. See, Omaha, for everybody listening to this, I want to set the record straight. People think that in Omaha, Nebraska, we're sometimes behind the rest of the world, but everything starts in Omaha. And then by the time it gets to the East Coast and the West Coast, we're around to something else, what makes us look behind, but we're so far ahead, it appears we're behind.
Yeah, it's funny, people can discount you all you want, but end of the day, there's always a ton of planes flying there for one big event every year.
You're right about that. Yeah.
Some of the smartest, most influential people in the world, that's for sure. So it's hilarious. So what else are you, the open-ended question, what else are you working on for the next that is truly, as revolutionary as what you've been doing to date?
Yeah, our next is the things I talked about, the cash and the legal, but the biggie, which will go out to 2021, is leverage. We're building data and measure and we are mining behavior of our clients today. We serve right around 28,000 clients here in the U.S. and leveraging AI as our next big initiative, and just how that can add. I mean, there are things that we're going to be able to do that we can't even think about today that will be value added for the consumer. We'll know it when we see it, like this financial cognitive testing. It's a huge need. People don't really think about it. And, who's going to provide that testing? And it's something that most clients would opt in. And if we can head off, someone taking advantage of somebody because they weren't making the best decision, then that's another value add. So there's a lot of things that we look at, and more that we'll be adding. We just added, on that, which I think is super innovative. On the investment side this year, we rolled out a thing called mission strategies, where if you think of a structured note or fixed index annuity, we've stripped all the cost out of that. We're using treasuries to where we can, 18 months forward, we can either guarantee or come pretty close to guaranteeing client's principal through a treasury, and then participating in the upside of the markets. We're getting 80 to 90% upside with caps in the 11 to 14% range with virtually no downside risk. And so, that was something that no one is doing. They're doing the structures because there's credit risk there, which we have no credit risk, and they're very opaque. There's all kinds of other fees and expenses. And here we've created essentially the same thing with U.S. Treasury backed guarantee and pushing the economics to the consumer. So we're also innovative on the investment side of the business as well. We've been big into factor-based investing. We acquired 2BI last year. It's one of our fastest growing. We acquired 17 GIPS compliant records. Our alpha generation is through the roof. Rick Jaster, who runs that group, I think factor-based is not active, it's not passive, it splits it down the middle. And I think the academic data is really powerful on how much alpha can be consistently generated through factor-based investing. So I think we're innovating. I'm talking about tech things, but we're really innovating all over the place.
It certainly sounds like, and I must say, I think the thought leadership that you've demonstrated in this is something that a lot of firms can learn from, because frankly, you not only you clearly understand this business from the frontline standpoint for achieving as much as you did, and from the building of a practice, but technology piece is often missing in so many of these. And you clearly have spent some time making sure you're adept at that as well. So well done.
Thank you.
So before we wrap up, there are three kind of blue sky questions I ask people to think about, and let me know what your thoughts are. But essentially, the first question I have for you is, if you had one wish of something you could change in the industry or your practice or wherever it might be, what would it be?
We have one standard. Everybody had to be a fiduciary, because consumers, I was out here 2 weeks ago, spoke to about 7 CEOs. I asked them who knew the difference between a fiduciary and a broker, and not one of them knew the difference. I mean, these are high net worth people. They don't know. I was interviewing Michael Dubin, who started Dollar Shave Club in Chicago at our conference. He nailed it. But very, very, very few people know. So everybody had to be and was a fiduciary, because consumers think that most people are acting in their best interest anyway.
And it's unfortunate, because that veil of ignorance that some people benefit from is one that leads to suboptimal outcomes for everybody. In the long journey you've had to get to where you are today, what are the biggest challenges to achieving the level you currently achieved?
Getting out of your own way. So early on in my career, Jason, I felt like I had to know something about everything. And I always say I was trying to be a library. And then I became a librarian. And I surrounded myself with the best people I could find and get out of their way. And I love it. I mean, there's many times I was on a call this morning. It's like, I disagree, but I'm going to disagree and commit. And I'm going to get behind you. And most of the time I'm wrong. On the bigger visionary things, I think I'm pretty good. But as far as tactics and how to get there, I really have a phenomenal team. And they're very creative. They come up with a lot of ideations that I never even thought were possible. So getting out of our own way, knowing let's try to make yourself the dumbest person in the room, which I think I've done a good job at doing.
Yeah, it's I can't remember who said it to me years ago, but they said it's managing people is actually the easiest thing in the world. You hire people smarter than you and then let them do the job better than you ever could.
Well said.
Yes. The last question I wrap up with was, what excites you the most about what you're working on? Like, what gets you out of bed every morning with the get up and go attitude to keep doing what you're doing?
So, Jason, this is more recent. I've kind of had a rebirth of myself, and I've always wanted to leave my money to charity. And I started a foundation with Jeannie, my wife, called the Dreamweaver Foundation, where they do end-of-life wishes for the terminally ill, impoverished elderly. And by the way, it's been fantastic. We did 100 dreams last year exactly. We'll do 150 plus this year. But as I look around the world, I really want to impact. I believe, and we didn't really get into this, but in 2021, we'll have an ecosystem where people can join us at zero assets. We can work with people today with zero, or we have zero, we have billionaires, but we want to be able to move up and down the value chain without having any friction or leaving the advisor, and they can choose how and what they want to invest in their future. But I want to be the most trusted Carson for financial advice. Nobody owns that in the wealth management space. I'd say Fidelity has it in the retirement plan, Vanguard and mutual funds, but nobody owns it in this space, and I would like to own it. And the benefit I would then like to do is, I have a farming background. 9 million people died of starvation last year. 1 billion people go hungry every night. I want to make a dent in that with my financial resources. So, that's what really gets me. I mean, I want to change our profession. I'm having a ton of fun doing it. And there's a lot of value we get to add to the consumer. But those are first world problems. I want to make a dent in the real lives of people that operate on the first rung of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Well said. Well, thank you. This has been an insightful interview, and I am thoroughly impressed by everything you managed to accomplish, and even more curious to actually get my hands on it at some point. But that's the story. So thank you yet again for your time.
Thanks, Jason. It was nice being on.
So that was my interview with Ron Carson of Carson Wealth. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and you were probably no doubt as impressed as I was with not only the execution, but the level of thinking they've had on their platform. And with that, as always, I'm Jason Pereira, and this is Fintech Impact. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever it is that your podcasts. Until next time, take care.
This podcast was brought to you by Woodgate Financial, an award-winning financial planning firm catering to high net worth individuals and their families. To learn more, go to woodgate.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or find more episodes at fintechimpact.co.